Garlic crusted prime rib, a true holiday showstopper. Coming up. Before we begin, let's talk about prime rib. One of the biggest debates when it comes to buying prime rib is to get either bone-in or boneless. A bone-in roast is known to give you more flavor for a more tender result because the bones insulate the meat as it cooks. But it can also be time-consuming to carve. So we actually recommend that you get boneless roast and have your butcher tie the bones back onto the meat. That way you still get all the flavors from the bones and the meat would be insulated and tender, but you don't have to deal with carving it. With paper towels, we want to dry it completely before we season it. If we don't dry it out completely, the prime rib is not going to get that crispy, crackling crust that we really want to get. Another question a lot of people have when buying prime rib: prime or choice? If you are already splurging, we recommend you go with a prime grade roast. While prime grade prime rib is harder to find, it really has the best flavor. If you're going big, you might as well go big. The last question is, how much should I buy? We recommend about 1 pound per person. After the prime rib has cooked, you'll end up with about half a pound per person. Now that you know what kind of prime rib to buy, let's get cooking. Now, let it sit at room temperature for about 3 hours. And while the prime rib is coming to room temperature, let's go ahead and make a rub. In a small mixing bowl, add in 6 cloves of garlic minced, 1 stem of fresh rosemary minced, 3 branches of thyme minced as well. Add in half a tablespoon of kosher salt, about 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil, and freshly ground black pepper to taste. Mix all the ingredients in and set it aside. And 3 hours later, once the prime rib has come to room temperature, it's time to season it. It is really important that you let the roast come to room temperature. If you put a cold piece of meat in the oven, it's going to bring the temperature of the oven down, which is going to create uneven cooking. Generously season with kosher salt, we need to be generous with our seasoning. That would ensure that the roast is fully flavored from the inside out. Apply the rub on top and the sides. These garlic and herbs smell absolutely divine. Once the rub is on, a little bit more of black pepper to taste on the top and the sides. Transfer the prime rib onto a rag in a roasting pan. So that's really it. Now we are ready to roast. And the trick to getting that beautiful crispy exterior is to start in a really hot oven. Being that said, preheat your oven to 500 degrees. Roast at 500 degrees for 20 minutes. Then reduce the temperature down to 325. and roast for 11 to 12 minutes per pound at 325 degrees. Every roast is a different weight and therefore it's going to be a different amount of time. If you're spending so much money on this piece of meat, you really want to do it right. Some people like to cook the prime rib low and slow, but the fat doesn't render. At high heat, the fat renders and you get a crispier exterior. With a prime rib, you want to make sure that you're not overcooking it. This is one of those times when a meat thermometer is non-negotiable. When the internal temperature reaches 120 degrees, you may take it out of the oven. This is a 7-pound prime rib roast, and it took me about 1.5 hours after reducing the temperature to 325 degrees. Now, cover with aluminum foil and tent it for about 30 minutes. The temperature will continue to rise for about 10 degrees to give you that perfect medium rare roast. It's also going to absorb the juices as it's resting. And 30 minutes later, transfer the prime roast onto a cutting board to start carving it. Cut out the strings that are holding the bones back. Because we had the butcher tie the bones back onto the roast, it's really easy now to remove them. It's so much easier than having to carve them. Typically, prime rib slices are pretty thick. It's such a tender piece of meat that if you do really thin slices, it's just going to fall apart. And it's also the holidays. If there was a real time to treat yourself, this should be it. When you cut into the roast, the center should be pink, the exterior should have the beautiful crackling skin, and the fat should be rendered. That's a sign of a great prime rib. Oh my, look at that stunning prime rib. Prime rib is typically served with an au jus or a horseradish sauce. And there you guys have it, prime rib. Enjoy! Buen provecho!